Paula Marari. I'm a line captain at KQ. I'm also an instructor, typewriting instructor. They call us a TRI. Typewriting simply means you get to instruct on the type that you fly on. So in my case, I fly the Embraer. That's the Embraer 190. It's a 96-seater aircraft, and that's 96 passengers, 4 cabin crew, and 2 pilots, and flies at 41,000 feet. I actually did 2 careers in aviation. So I did the flying bit, and then also did the maintenance. And I finished both and qualified on both. So I'm also a qualified maintenance engineer. I work as a pilot. So I did my flying training from 1998 is when I went into flying school. Then I did the engineering between 1999 and 2002. And then at the same time I also finished my CPL. Well, first is the PPL, private license, and there's a commercial license, which I finished in 2001. And then thereafter I did an instructor's rating, which now lets you teach people how to fly. And then just after I finished the instructor's rating, I also finished the engineering. I had been doing both of them at the same time. It wasn't easy because I had to miss some classes here to attend other classes there. So at the end of the day, I finished everything in 2002. I got my first job as a flight instructor in 2003. So I've been instructing since 2003 at Wilson Airport in the flying schools. And then I started flying the twin turboprops in 2005. The twin turboprops is different from this. These are jet engines. So the twin turboprops have the propeller. But it's actually a jet engine driving a propeller, and that's why they're called turboprops. So I flew those in 2005. Became a captain in just under a year in 2006 on the twin turboprops. And I flew on up until 2010. And then I joined KQ in 2010. So I joined on the Embraer. That's the aircraft I'm still flying. So I flew it as, initially you join as a second officer, where you sit on the right seat and they train you to be a co-pilot. So when you check out means you pass the training and you qualify to be a first officer. So I flew as a first officer on the Embraer for about 4 years. And then I flew the Dreamliner, that's the one next to that one, for about 2 years as a co-pilot still. And then after that, I got promoted to captain back to the Embraer. And I've been there now 2 years, about 2.5. And then I also became an instructor about 6 months ago on the same type of aircraft. This is the flight control. It's on both sides. There's one on my side, there's one on your side. They both move the same way. So even if you moved yours, then mine will move. If you pulled it up, they both move up the same way. If you pushed it down, they both move down the same way. So it's what controls the aircraft, makes it take off, climb, turn, and descend. These are the thrust levers. They control the engines. So if we advance them, if we push them up forward, we'll be adding power to the engines. And then if we brought them back down, we'll be reducing power on the engines. This is the landing gear lever. I don't know if you've seen every time an aircraft takes off and the wheels go up. So this is when we select it up and the landing gear goes up. And if we want to come and land, then we put it down and the wheels come back down. I loved aircraft from before, and I guess fortunately my dad pushed me along on my dream, because as soon as I finished high school, the first thing I wanted to do was engineering, which I still went on and did. But fortunately my dad pushed me and got me into flying shortly before the engineering. So I ended up doing both. So I mean, he passed away last year, so he paid for everything, for my flying, my engineering and everything. So he's been kind of like the backbone behind me flying. My first ever flight was in December 1998 in flying school, because again, I never flew as a passenger before. So of course with the instructor, I wouldn't say I was scared. It's just once you get airborne for the first time, things seem to move in slow motion. And that kind of fascinated me, because on your takeoff roll, things move really fast. And as soon as you get airborne, there's a sense of like you're almost not moving. I love the job because it's not regular. It's not an 8 to 5 job. So you find that sometimes I come to work during the day, sometimes I come to work during the night. For me, that's already fascinating because I'm not on a regular schedule. So it has its disadvantages as well, because sometimes you get to miss out on holidays with your family, Christmas, New Year's, and stuff. I guess by nature, I'm an introvert because even when I teach, it's not a class. You don't teach like a class of 30 people. The flight deck takes 2 people, so it's me and the student. And if I do teach on ground, then it's the 2 students that I'm teaching. So it's the environment makes me, I guess, brings out the best thing, I'd say. For me, family is so important. So I think the time I used to have favorite destinations was when I was much younger. So I was happy to be outside and experiencing different cultures and seeing how everything else out there works. But now for me, I come to work. Had women in aviation, even in NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. We've had women engineers, mathematicians, and everything since the 1940s. So it's all just a mindset. I think if you believe in what you can do, you'll be able to do it regardless of the environment in which you are. I think my advice is not just to the young women, because I think there's lots of young men who also need advice and mentoring. So I'll tell them, work hard in school. I mean, you need to identify what you like, especially when it comes to the subjects that you like. Work hard at those, and then stay focused, because after school, you get to choose what to do in college or in university or whatever it is. Stay focused, and as long as you're in that career, that profession, strive to make yourself better every time. Try to, do short courses here and there. They're called CPDs, continuous professional development courses, and try to stay ahead all the time, because like aviation changes a lot. So if you don't keep abreast with what's going on, then you tend to lag behind. So I guess the best advice is focus and just continue working hard, regardless of whether you already have a job or not. I'm still a work in progress. I don't have targets that I set, like next year I'll do this, next year I'll do that. So I take things as they come along. I tend to work hard in all the areas that I do, whether it's at home, mothering and being a wife, or being at work. So I tend to work hard everywhere, and I take things as they come. So if I do achieve anything, then I move on and keep building up from there. So at the moment, I don't have a target for 10, 15 years. Where do I want to be in 10, 15 years? I tend to take things as they come along. I want to be remembered as just me. Me, simple Paula. Maybe just hard work and just keep yourself reading everything, not just what you're working on, but read everything around you. Because I watched my dad do the same. He was also a doctor, but he seemed to know a lot about all the other fields. So I guess my advice to anybody is just keep yourself abreast of everything that's around you, even outside of your profession.
My name is Ruth Karauri. I am a captain on the 737. I work for Kenya Airways. Aircraft are basically named according to their manufacturers. So currently we have in the world, I would say we have two major ones, the ones which everyone would probably know, that's the Boeing and the Airbus. We have smaller ones like CRJs, which are Canadian regional jets. We have the Embraer, like the one behind me here, which is Brazilian. But I think most lay people would know the Boeing and the Airbus. Currently, Kenya Airways owns Boeing 737s and 787s and some Embraer aircraft. So what happens is the aircraft are grouped according to their weight and size. So when you join the airline, you will join the smallest aircraft there is, and you'll work your way up the ranks. So you'll start as a second officer, who will have one bar. A lot of people usually ask me what the bars mean. So you'll start as a second officer on the Embraer. You'll have one bar on your jacket. You go through your training. If you're successful, you'll graduate to a first officer. You'll have the two bars. So you'll be a first officer on the Embraer for a period of time. Then you'll move up to the 737, then up to the 787, still as a first officer. And now once you get there, then you start your command training, which is how you become a captain. So once you do your command training, you become a captain, then you will come and command the Embraer again. So it's basically like you work your way to the top, then come down and work your way to the top again as a captain. So the captain is the one who will have the 4 bars that you see. When I was growing up, I was actually one of those children who said, when I grow up, I want to be a pilot. And the teachers would ask in class, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd always be pilot. The reason not being that I wanted to fly planes, but because I wanted to wear the uniform. When I was in class 2, 8 years old, I saw a Kenya Airways advert on TV, and I just fell in love with it. And I remember I told my dad, when I grow up, I'm going to wear that uniform. So at the time, I didn't even know that being a pilot meant you fly a plane. All I knew was that I'd get to wear the uniform with the bars and the cap, and that was enough for me. So, and then now progressing on, now you find out what the career is about. I love to travel, so it fit into my personality of travel. Flying is a very expensive venture. I think flying school on average will not cost you less than 4 million Kenya shillings. So as I grew up, I had the wish in my heart, of course, but I wasn't from a very well-off family. So by the time I got to high school, I could tell this is probably not going to happen for me, or I will probably have to go to university, get another job, get my own money, and then be able to pay for my own flying. Luckily, by the grace of God, which is why I say this was meant for me and for me alone, just as I finished high school, there's that waiting period of about a year and a half before you go to campus. I was just at home one day and my dad came with a newspaper and he said, Ruth, you've said you've always wanted to be a pilot. Here is an advert for Kenya Airways. And they had written there in the paper, we're looking for ab initio pilots. Ab initio pilots are basically people who know zero about flying. You're just a lay person, so they take you and they'll take you through the whole training process until you finish, graduate, and then they'll absorb you into the company. So he told me, just apply and see if you'll get it. And I applied, and we were 3,000 applicants. We came for our first interview here, and I remember I was so intimidated because among those 3,000, there were people who had done architecture in campus, there were people who had done engineering, someone had done aviation maintenance, and I was there from Fall River. And I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to get it. So we came, did the first interview. I went home, I told my dad, let's forget that one. And I was ready to go to campus, but about a month later, electrical engineering, can you believe it? I was, honestly, if I wasn't going to be a pilot, I think I would have been very, very miserable because I didn't have anything else that I wanted to do as such. So I got an A in KCSE and they were like, okay, your marks add up to this, you can do electrical engineering. And I was like, okay. But honestly, I don't know what I would be doing with that degree if I had done it. So anyway, I get a call a month later from a lady who says she's from Kenya Airways, and she asks me, no, she tells me, you've made it to the second interview process. I'm like, oh, okay. 250 people, second interview. We came, this was a written, it was actually like KCSE all over again. It had history, no, not history, geography, chemistry, maths, like literally a written exam. 2 weeks later, another phone call, you've made it through the third stage, psychometric exam, which I guess they're trying to figure out whether you're a psycho or not. I think the psychometric, we were about 60 people. Yeah. And then after that, I think it took a bit longer, maybe 2 months. And then this lady calls and she asks me, do you have a passport? Of course, I did not have a passport. I'm like, and it was very early in the morning. I remember I was still in bed. And the first thing she asked me is, do you have a passport? And I'm like, what? Because she did not say she's from Kenya Airways or anything. So I told her, no, I don't have a passport. Then she tells me, well, then you better get one immediately. And I jumped out of bed and I ran to the kitchen to tell my mom, and she's like, what do you mean? I'm telling her, we have to go to Nyayo house, we have to go to Nyayo house. I need a passport. And so she told, of course, after all that, she told me, yeah, you're among the 15 who've been selected. You're going to go to Addis Ababa for your training. So please make sure you have a passport and drop it, a copy of it with Kenya Airways within the next, I think they gave us 3 weeks. Nyayo house, we all know who is going to get a passport in 3 weeks. So I am sorry to say, but a bit of bribery and shaking of hands was involved. But I managed to get my passport, bring it to Kenya Airways. 2 months later, I was on a plane for my first ever time. The whole village came with the hired matatus to the airport to see me off. And I went to Addis. So you go, you meet the instructors, they are ex-military pilots. And I remember the first question the instructor asked me is, do you know how to ride a bicycle? And I said, no. Then he told me, you can't fly. I was like, oh my God, what do you mean? Why didn't my parents buy me a bike when I was a child? Now this is the end of all my hopes and dreams. But turns out he was wrong, because I learned how to fly, and then I came back and learned how to drive a car. And I am getting my son to teach me how to ride a bicycle. So I always tell people I've done my life the other way around. Before I even get to the flight, I had this unfounded fear, or I always thought to myself, oh my God, what if I am afraid of heights? Because I don't know, I might get in there and panic and then it's all over. So that was my biggest fear before my first flight. There was quite a bit of ground school before we actually got into the plane. I think we did about 4 months. And then you get your flight. I almost felt like I was going on a joyride. It did not even feel like a lesson. And it was almost like sightseeing. And it's like, look down here, you can see the runway, look, we're going this way. So for me, my first flight did not feel to me like it was a lesson. And then after that, of course, now first, I know I'm not scared of heights, so I'm like, yay! And then, so after that, I think the rest just came naturally. Like, you get comfortable, there's space around you, you get comfortable being in the air, you get comfortable with the lingo that is being used. Boeing 737 simulator at the Kenya Airways Pride Center. We use it for training purposes, to qualify our second officers, first officers, and captains for line flying. Karibu, join me. As you can see, the visuals, if you're able to take this, are exactly like what we would see if we were, for example, on the tarmac at JKIA. It gives a live feeling of everything you'd see in an actual flight deck. high was a flight I did to Cotonou in Togo. And I think I was the first ever female pilot that they had seen. So when we checked into the hotel, they actually called dancers to, it's like the president had come. There were dancers all over and they were so excited and they were trying to carry me on their shoulders. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like royalty. So that was definitely a high for me to show them that women can do this as well. And you still get that a lot, even as you're walking through airport terminals, you'll find U-turn heads. Of course, because I'm beautiful as well. Currently, we are 40 lady pilots in Kenya Airways, which when you tell people, everyone is like, oh my God, that is such a huge number. But I tell them, don't forget that we are 400 pilots in general. So the ladies are still making up only about 10% of the entire figure. So that is one challenge. We need to get more and more women into the aviation sector. For me personally, challenges, I would say, well, I've had a few where you meet passengers and they come on board and they hear it's a female pilot and then their mood just shifts and they start asking, are we safe? What will happen if what will happen in case an engine fails, or, you know, and the lack of trust is something that I think that we really need to work on. We need to let people know that my gender does not affect my capabilities. I'm just as capable as the next man. It's not really a challenge, but sometimes you can tend to take offense, especially with West Africans who walk up to you in the terminal and be like, are you the one flying this big plane? You small girl, a small girl like you. And my reply is always, it's my brain that is flying the plane. It's not my body size. I really want my daughter to know this, that she can do anything she sets her mind to. Lastly, to blame also, parents tend to have this misconception of you have to go to uni before anything else. I've met a lot of them. They come and tell me, my daughter wants to be a pilot, but I've told her she has to go to university first. And I'm like, why? If she wants to be a pilot, let her be a pilot. You can start flying as young as 16. So if that is her passion, let her do it. Let her get in as early as possible. And for boys as well, I'm not saying even the boys, let them get in as early as possible. Let's not push this whole uni thing. It's not a bad thing to have a degree, but it's not the end of the world not to have one also. Currently, I'm a Form 4 leaver. I never went to uni, but the level of skill and the license I have now, I can go to a uni and do a master's degree. I don't have to do the undergraduate course. So let them fly. Let them see me on TV. I know that they can do it. I think drives maybe. For example, like if you think of Qatar and Emirates, when they are sourcing for pilots, they do these drives like across maybe Africa, the whole continent. I think it's something that KQ can take up to do, like drives across the country where you have your lady pilots. Like I said, we are 40. If you can get only half of that number on a single day, go to Marsabit County. Tell them, look, these ladies have made it. You can do it too. So just talks, encouragement, exposure, show people there are pilots not only in Kenya Airways, in Wilson, there are those who are doing general aviation flying. It can be done. People just need to know that it can.